form as the feature.
Hey, I guess I can get it started because I have the only demo item here. And it just quickly came up because we just finished this a few minutes ago, thanks to Graham's work, and then Gavik also fixing a little detail again. To give you background on what we are working on for the registry work in pre that we need to do for migrating metadata over to a real database instead of having it in a blob. We also wanted to run QA tests in pre, but we didn't have runners there. And so we needed to set up runners for the pre environment, and Graham worked on that. And he did this by adding a new Helm release, which is setting up a runner in Kubernetes, just by setting runners enabled in a value for this environment. And we just made this work today, and I just wanted to show you that a little bit. I will share my screen. So this is the MR that I linked to. And if you look at this, the main thing is that you need to set this GitLab runner enable through. And what Graham did, he added a new release called GitLab runner, which is also running in its own namespace by default, so that you don't mix it up with the GitLab namespace. But you can change this if you want to. And it's just adding the runner chart and setting up a secret. And that's basically it to enable it. And we did this. And I can just show you the quick result, which is, I think, here going to pre. After this was getting deployed, we needed to do nothing else and already see the runner being added here and being available. So that's really nice and cool, and just thought that's maybe a nice thing to show for this demo today. I didn't test it yet because it just got working a few minutes ago. So we should see if we can run something on it. Some special things to mention about this is that this runner is running in privileged mode, because at least in pre we want to be able to run Docker and Docker. But we also set up a role-based access control, and we disabled using privilege, let's say the privilege to run set user ID binaries. So if that blocks us, we need to enable this maybe, but let's try if we can run with that privileges set as low as we can in first test of how far we can get with that. And I think this is nice and cool. Does anybody have comments to that?
I have a question, which is, we added the new runners. Sorry, give me 1 second. My cat is trying to get into a box. Hey. I don't want him there. So we added a new chart to our repository.
A new release. We added a new release called, instead of GitLab, we now also have GitLab GitLab runner.
GitLab runner.
And
but
that's using the official runner, GitLab runners chart.
Right, but so this will, how can we actually replicate this across multiple environments? As in, if we want to add like 15 different types of runners now, do we just go and copy paste these things, or what do we do?
I think from what I understand is that you just need to go to the environment that you want to enable runners in and set the GitLab runner enable true setting, and then I need to make sure. I think what Graham did is that he is getting the secret needed to access the runner out of our chef fold. So that should generically work now for each environment where we have this set up. That's how I understand it. So
okay, but if I want to add like 10 runners on pre-GitLabcom,
I guess I need to look into what config values we have available in the chart, because I think that should give us maybe a possibility to add numbers. I really need to look into the details there.
This is, Maren, this is just the single Kubernetes executor, right? So I think it'd just be one Kubernetes executor per environment.
Yeah, but it should work this way.
But I
the chart support.
So we would need to duplicate the runners in order to actually create multiple different executors, right? Because, for example, what if I want to have a shared runner manager like thing, and then a private shared GitLab runner manager type of thing? So multiples of these that they can be attached to different projects. So they get attached to the same instance, but they need isolation when it comes to scaling up and down, configuration, and so on.
So the manager can still be the same, because the single runner manager can have multiple runners defined. Naming in GitLab runner is really terrible, I know. But I don't remember if our charts support the ability to, let's say, provide a YAML configuration, let's say. Basically, you say, just run the spot, but instead of generating the default configuration, which is I think what we are running here, something like, please run this executor configuration. In that case, you should be able to define more than one with different settings, and so you can have the shared, or basically duplicate what we have today.
And just to be clear, the shared runner manager has nothing to do with Kubernetes. It's only runs on virtual machines, and it's something that we have. I think don't we use shared runner managers on staging too? We should if we don't, because this is what we want to validate, since we do use that on production.
Yeah. So, but the point I was making with this, sorry, I shouldn't have used shared runner manager. I was wanting to say something like shared runners manager, meaning we have 4 of those, I think, 4 different runner managers that are attached to different types of project on multiple instances. So in order to get out of that business of having to beg someone to add new managers, it would be interesting to see whether we can just create a new manager that will run these workloads and attach it to the same instance. So for example, for staging, we would be able to do, like create or add the runners to the Bombardier tests or QA tests, or like all of these different projects that have their own requirements. And they now, all of them use one shared runner manager, right? So it would be ideal if we can create additional one of these using the same cluster, but isolation on that side.
So I want to point out something which I think is important here. That is that we cannot expect to just replace runners, say general available runners for customer with Kubernetes one, because they don't behave exactly the same. So it would be just a hell for support, because they will just be inundated by tickets that their CI builds are no longer working.
I'm not even suggesting that. This is nothing to do with customer facing. This is all to do with internal facing testing that we relatively often get a request for. Can I add a runner for this? Can I test somehow this at staging? So ideally, it would be as easy as adding another configuration option or something to these charts, and then just running it off and not having to build completely new infrastructure every time someone wants to test something.
But why do you want to have more than one in that case? Because this can scale up to, how many resources you have in the cluster, basically. So why do you want to have more than one?
Because looking at how things actually get clogged up on current managers. So for example, someone fires off tens, hundreds of QA tests. It backs up everything else on that box.
For that though, I think also with QA specifically, I think we switched to using shared runner manager for QA on ops, because that spins up, every single job gets its own virtual machine, and we didn't have the same type of congestion issues. We flirted with the idea of using the Kubernetes runner a while back, and we ended up kind of abandoning it because it just wasn't as reliable as using the shared runner manager. Maybe we should look at it again. I don't know, but we currently use the shared runner managers on ops, staging, and production. I don't think we're using the Kubernetes executor anywhere other than pre.
Right. And I'm not even saying that we need to replace that. What I'm also saying is that you also have those synthetic load tests that you have in your projects, right? And all of those are using shared runner managers, and they might not need to.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think we've been a lot happier since going to the shared runner manager, just because it scales a lot better than anything else. Definitely scales better than using a single VM like we do for the release runner and the ChatOps runner. We also, I don't know, maybe it's worth taking a look at Kubernetes again to see if it can meet any of our needs, because it would be nice even for release tools and ChatOps, it would be nice to have more dynamic scaling. Right now, we just have these beefy VMs with lots and lots of cores, mostly sits idle probably.
And I know for a fact that the Kubernetes, well, actually, that's another question. This is deployed through the Helm chart into Kubernetes, but does this also mean that we configure the Kubernetes executor? Those are kind of different things though, aren't they?
Yeah, but this is the chart. So the chart by default configure only the Kubernetes executor.
Okay,
so it just gives you a runner in the cluster that works with a Kubernetes executor.
Okay.
Yeah, the executor is, I think, just spinning up pods for every job and managing that, similar to how the shared runner manager manages virtual machines. And
it scales better, but it's faster to scale in theory, but the isolation level is very different. And the real, I mean, the isolation is a problem for us because we host the thing for others. But the other real problem is that the service pattern. So how your CI job interacts with the service that you define through GitLab CI YAML is completely different, because they are all running on localhost.
So is Docker and Docker? Does Docker and Docker not work or something? Or
you need privilege, you need a lot of privilege on the cluster, which makes this less.
This is why
I would not be willing to
production.
share this. I would not use this as a SaaS service.
Yeah, and that's what we don't want anyway. My point here is we just want to get out of the business of how do I add a runner for my testing, and the runner on staging is overloaded, or how do I make sure that I get my tests on pre-running and so on. If it's easy to get this done through this setup, then it theoretically gives us much more flexibility for non-prod environments for people who want to do testing, including ourselves, right? we have a bunch of different migrations in our queue, and if we for all of those need to like rely on just one runner or set up every single time a new one, and like that doesn't sound like a good investment. And yeah, Andrew, thanks for that link. Actually, that's also a good point, right? Like Andrew posted about the runner for Tamland. You want to speak
just sure. I mean, it sort of ties in with this, and I didn't create it knowing that this was happening, but it kind of matches up a little bit, which is that, you know, Tamland sort of started off as this little bit of a toy, and now we're using it everywhere, and it's becoming part of processes, and it's actually running on the CI runners, and it can run for like 2 hours. Sorry, on the ChatOps runners, and that's not actually a very good thing. And we need its own runner, and it actually needs to be a bigger machine because it does a lot of number crunching. And if we gave it a faster machine, it would run a lot quicker. And so it's kind of like a specialized runner. And so it might be a good place to have a specific runner. And if we could run it in Kubernetes, all the better.
Yeah, but again, then it really depends if you can provide a custom configuration to the executor, because in a general Kubernetes environment, I suspect you want to have special nodes for running this, because if you need beefy machines, there will still be a node pool of beefy machine when you can run it.
Right. Okay. You can't say, like in the Tamland example, it'd be really nice if we had a GPU. You can't tell a runner that you need to run on a machine with a GPU just for that.
So we had a customer, couple of customer, I think Ticketmasters and others, that had a lot of they were using a lot the Kubernetes executor, and they were contributing a lot a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And they were providing a lot of kind of hooks where you can define environment variables in your job, and this kind of interacted with the process of scheduling the job. I do remember something for user access for limiting the account, I don't remember the name in Kubernetes. Basically, there was a lot of things for scheduling and things like that. So maybe there is also something that allows us to put labels or something like that, and then maybe we schedule where we want, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an example. It's probably over engineering for what we need for that, but that's good to know. I'll look into that as well if I get a chance.
Cool. Thanks for entertaining my thought here, Henry. It's generated a good discussion, I think. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I learned also some things by that.
Cool. I mean, I don't think we have anything else, given that we had a very short week. And Skarbek is not around as well. So
yeah, I think the last state, I think, for the API migration is that we have an MR, at least for Canary now, but I think we need to still review it and then see how we get forward with that one. But I can't speak too much to it. I just briefly looked at it, and would be better if Skarbek would be able to give insight into that data, maybe.
Sounds good. Let's make sure that he survives his bees, and we can make sure that the migration happens. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time. And there's a couple of minutes back.